As we wait for the space to, actually I got this on the right one. Go back. As you wait for it to set up and everything to come into play, waiting for ourselves to load up. Welcome to Friday. Peace, peace, peace. Peace and love, dark and chaos. Adsum, or I am present. I am present. One second. As we proceed to give you what you need. Yes, indeed. Ooh. Been in my laboratory mixing and mastering some things. Tonight, we're going to be getting into emotional absence. That's one of those things that I've noticed that when it comes into doing our shadow work, doing our healing work, acquiring the knowledge, applying it, shedding identities, a lot of the things that trigger us would only show me my emotional absence, where I was absent in the space to assess my emotions, to understand the reflections. I remember there was one time that I actually was like two relationships in particular where I was told I was emotionally absent. Like I wasn't there emotionally. Though I was there physically, and the only time that I would be there emotionally was based on physical reaction. That's that emotional aspect. I made a post earlier today. I was talking about saying that you're going to give your kids whatever the things that you didn't have. You got to assess the emotional absence of the reason why you want to do that. Everything that you're doing in your space is created based on only what's already present. Can't make anything else go in there until you deal with it. A lot of times when we go into our shadow work, dealing with ourselves, having those conversations that we need to have, the reason that you feel the way that you feel in certain situations is because you're being given the opportunity to become emotionally present in the space. Until we, just think about it. Think about it like this. Here's one circle. Here's all the experiences. Here's all the experiences, all the traumatic event and all the emotional experiences. On this side is all the observations. Here's all the room to observe. If I bring these two circles together, we do the vesica. So based on my experiences, what I need to experience through the emotional presence, and based on the observations of what I need to observe, the lessons I need to learn, I now create inside this center space my shadow I create different versions of my shadow. Family, friends, or but related to you based on the traumatic experience, associated to you based on the traumatic experience, the job or the place you go to maintain the results of your traumatic experience, and the list goes on. The key is really understanding emotional absence. Tonight we're going to be getting into emotional absence. Top 3 topics came to my mind: emotional absence, internal standards and boundaries, and the authentic credibility versus the survival skill set. When one is emotionally absent, we think about it. Go back to whenever you thought about whenever they gave us the image on TV or the father figure that was in your life. They were usually always gave you this aspect of the emotionally. You can't show emotion. You can't be angry. You can't be upset. Can't feel some type of way. You got to swallow that shit. Think about that. Now remember, this is a pendulum and it's swinging. Masculine and feminine, gender, moving yourself out of the gender. On the lowest level, you got male and female, or you got the man and the woman. But as you get out of this state of duality, you start understanding that emotional absence and that physical presence. A lot of things that we do in our space, that do in our lives, is based on being emotionally absent. A lot of the things that you'll put into your space is based on so you can stay emotionally absent. So you put something in that space based on the physical, so it's only based on reaction. Remember, we've been getting into the last couple of weeks. You have to get past the point of reaction because that's going to get you out of your comfort zone. You got to get out of this space with yourself where you're talking about like, yo, I got to react. I got to react. I got to react. I got to serve. I got to help. I gotta mask my insecurity. I gotta mask my avoidance. I gotta mask this wound, because that's ultimately what you're doing inside of that space, trying to stay emotionally absent. That's why when you're doing your work, redoing your shadow work, you're dealing. The heaviness that comes in is now that you're being shifted into a space to where you're emotionally present. That means the traumatic experience that you are still existing through, now you're being set to the tone of where you're really at in your life. It don't matter where you at. Greetings. It don't matter where you at. And that's what we don't get into tonight. With that we don't get that emotional absence, the difference between authentic credibility versus the survival skill set. And we're going to build into that. And we're also going to get into this the internal standards and the boundaries that you create. And whatever else comes to the topic comes up to the table. Welcome to class. As I play with these different herbs that I've been creating throughout the week, I want to start with a story or an aspect that helped me really understand my emotional absence and understanding the detriment of me staying in an emotionally absent state. And what I thought emotional absence was, and what I found out emotional absence isn't. Got to bring these things to the surface so we can have set the new tone, set the new narrative, set the new course. Emotional absence, in the most simplest form, is the controlling of your emotions versus embracing the power of your emotions. The controlling of your emotions versus the power of your emotions. When I was emotionally absent, even when you're in this state of emotional absence, you're always in this state of trying to control your emotions. Remember last week we talked about emotional intellect versus that aspect of your emotional intelligence. So when I was stuck in the emotional intellect phase, because it's a cycle that you got to go through, that emotional intellect phase. That means I knew the definition of love. I knew the definition of hate. I knew the definition of sadness, depression, sorrow. I knew the definitions I knew the definitions of the emotion. I understood the intellectual aspects of the emotion. Therefore, I had this false sense of control, or I was trying to reach this sense of control with my emotions. Here's the thing. The rewards are way different working on yourself. The rewards are way different working on yourself. That's when we're always going into that internal standard. The definition of love, the truest definition of love is a destructive force. Love in its purest state is the most destructive force To love yourself in the definition of yourself, love is a destructive force. Think about the things you did based on just the definition of love that you were given. Yeah. Think about the things that you did based on the definition of love that you had or what you searched for. Think about that. Think about that definition. Think about the things that you did, the relationship, from relationships to friendships, and everything you built based on the definition to control your emotion, based on being emotionally absent versus you being emotionally present and physically present. Yep. I looked at myself and I thought about it, and I was like, I had to get to a point with myself, as an example, that I was never. Yes, it destroys everything in its path. It has to destroy in order to bring out truth in yourself. So I had to think about it to myself. I never been in love. I got to a point into the no self. I've never been in love. I had to get to that point in my work, in my journey, in my path, that I've never been in love. The things that I saw that I was basing upon love was based on physical presence, only being emotionally present through physical reaction. That means your job, your job, how you work, your kids and your family, all of these aspects. Those are the things that you use as, I love them because I accept them for what they are. You got expectancy, you got a condition, you have a lack of boundary. That's what you got to remember. Where you pulling from is only from you, only from the experiences based on your life cycles. Everything else that comes into your space has to be on that baseline. So when I was thinking about the aspects of love, being present in love, in the state of love, or being present in the state of my emotions in balance, or understanding myself, I really had to look at it like, wait, I'm not really what all of this shit. I was really in a mindset with wait, I'm not really, why did I do this? To maintain the identity of my environment, to maintain myself inside a certain space, to keep me, because this is the key when you're going into a space. You can physically go into a space and now you can react emotionally. That's a whole different thing than you going into a space and being emotionally present. A lot of times we think that vulnerability, one of the things was vulnerability. I thought vulnerability was my ability to tell my story and tell people that I've been hurt before and things happen to me, and then they connect to that. All I was doing is building a line of attachment because the baseline, I was in survival mode. You're not in survival mode at your house, and then not everything you do is on that wavelength based on survival. Your instincts based on survival. So everything that comes into your space is based on survival. The thing that we do to trick ourselves when we're creating our environments is we compartmentalize our levels based on survival, based on that comfort zone. So my level in this presence in this space, I created an entire realm that were all obstacles. They were all obstacles because they did not serve me, because they involved me becoming emotionally invested. So now on the other end of that spectrum, I was going into spaces. Remember, you got it. Everything automatically comes to a balance. Chaos is that order. Everything still, even chaos is a part of the balance. So if I'm sitting in a space with myself and over here is the opportunities for me to continue being the identity, who I am, what I become comfortable in, that means everything over on this side of the coin, same fucking coin, is going to be my obstacles. But now to become fully present in yourself, to become fully present and to be able to apply, I have to be able to turn those obstacles into my opportunities. Every obstacle that was ever in your space, that's the same fucking opportunity. Remember, you stuck in the space of duality, so you seeing it as two separate aspects. You see something that you can emotionally invest in, and then you see something that you physically invest in. The only time that you're emotional over in this space is based on a level of reaction. So now look at the entire narrative of, if you love me, you'll do this. If you love me, you'll do this. You're speaking through your insecurity, your doubt, your shame, your guilt, your lower aspect of the frequency. So it's not in the aspect of love, because now inside of that space, guess what this person's coming into your space to do? They're only a reflective aspect of you to show you aspects of yourself. So now whenever somebody was coming to me, it hit me like, yo, I didn't realize that their manipulation, beautiful that came up, their manipulation was only based on my manipulation. Their manipulation in a physical aspect was me. Their ability to manipulate me emotionally was based on what I had in the emotional intellect on the physical aspect. Something that I needed, something that I wanted, something that I did not yet define in myself, that I felt that they were supposed to give me. I still had that chip on my shoulder. I still had those chips on my shoulder. I still had those things that I had not dealt with in my past, in the aspects of my past. But you got to go into that space. That's exact. Whenever you, we have given ourselves this mindset of, whenever something gets chaotic, whenever something gets heavy, we think about chaos on a level of extremes. So as long as the chaos is, as long as we can react to it, we're good with it. As long as we can react to it, we all right with it. We can react to it, we can manipulate it and stay in that space, because it still serves a purpose. There's still an opportunity in this space. That's why when you think about a relationship with your baby father, your baby mother, your ex-husband, ex-wife, your wife, whatever, your girlfriend, your job, whatever it is. When you first went to your job, when you first got into that relationship, when you first got into that space, when you went into that space, what was your mindset? Where were you at? Where were you at emotionally? Where were you at physically? Where were you at in yourself? Did that come into your space based on that survival complex that you still in? Because now you got to think about everything that you said inside the relationship that was based on emotional reaction. So your emotions can be present. So you can exercise using your emotional intellect. That's why whenever we see these romantic movies on TV, they be like, oh my God, I never had somebody do what you do for me. You bring me peace. You really make me happy. And then we connect to that and we looking like, oh, not twin flame exactly. We're gonna get into that too. That's actually a perfect point that you brought up twin flames. Twin flame, karmic flame. Yeah, your twin flame, your karmic flame in that space, your twin flame or your karmic flame or that karmic, they're there to, for an example, they're there under the assessment. Exactly how you're not denying the cycle. They're there to burn away old aspects of you, old aspects of the identity that you tried to maintain. They're going to challenge every aspect of you based on that what you've been trying to maintain. When you're connecting to other individuals, allow the true connection to come into the space. Don't go into, you can't keep going into these spaces with that expectancy on your belt. I expect him to be 6'1". I expect her to be, I expect him to be this, and this. I'm going to say it like this. If the dream person came into your life, you would not know how to deal with them. Because the dream person, the dream aspect to come into your life to shift you to the next level is not in the dream of your fantasy of that nigga being in the right size and the right shape, or that dream chick with the big booty. It's the motherfucker that's in your nightmare. That's reaching like this, reaching in the fucking rain. I ain't 90s R&B had you reaching in the rain. You thought that was, no, that wasn't, what the fuck? It's going to be the aspect of the nightmare. You got to think about it like this from the spiritual aspect of this. If anything comes to me that's all gumdrops and some nice shit, it's still keeping me in my human perspective. So if I'm inside of my space and I'm still seeing nice shit in my dream, if I'm seeing the nice shit in my dream, or I'm seeing shit that doesn't startle me, or I'm playing with puppies in my fucking dream, it's to keep me within my comfort. It's keeping me within comfort. You sitting there like, oh my God, you sitting there, you had a whole dream. You had a whole dream that you saw big booty bitches in your damn dream the entire time, and you thought you was living that shit up. Yeah, that's the life that I want. I want a life with big booty bitches. You still stuck in physical shit. All of that is your urges being shown in front of you. Yeah, it's taking what you're going into is outside of your comfort zone. That's why you go through the string of the relationships that were horrible, because they took you out of your comfort zone. Because you needed that, because it was based in that survival mode. When you're trying to look for this shit in your life, I'm trying to look for the perfect person to do the perfect things with. And I want to do this, this, and this. Why? Tell me why. Tell me why. Because I've always wanted a family. Okay. Why did you all, why? Yeah, like, damn, you feeling good. Feeling good is a byproduct of your comfort zone. Feeling better, I'd rather feel better. I'd rather get better. I'd rather become stronger. Everything that you learned based on becoming better is taking you outside of your comfort zone. Ultimately, secondary, auxiliary is you gonna feel good about it. Because you got to get out of that good and bad. It's positive and negative. And they had And that's what you'll look at. You'll look at your world, the whole world, motherfuckers looking at the world like it's it's a sitcom. And now you trying to replace shit, trying to keep other things into space to keep you from becoming emotionally present. Because a lot of time, when in the aspect of the trauma bonded, living through your trauma, living through our traumas, all you do in living through your traumas is you try to exist based on staying as emotionally absent as possible, using your emotions as a weapon, using your compassion as a weapon. I don't want to be compassionate to that nigga. I don't want to be compassionate to that motherfucker because they don't think I want something from them. I ain't going to be nice to these people, or I ain't going to say hey, or I ain't going to be my... You're just finding excuses inside of the space to stay the way the fuck you are. Similar to that's why they're in the space. So now you got real nigga, all these bitch ass, you saying that nigga this and that nigga this and that nigga this, and then that nigga an agent and that nigga's this and that nigga's this. What does that say about you? Remember, if you can see it, you can react to it. It's showing you where you are presently. It's showing you some things that you got. It's showing you where you are either physically present, where you're physically present, your physical presence is being met with your emotional presence. Yes, exactly. Your shadow is going like this. Here are your experiences in the darkness, your traumatic experiences, everything that you've been through in the darkness. Everything that you've ever written down and put into your contract is right here in the darkness. Here is the whole long list of the observations of everything to observe or to observe, the land of observing. In the center of this, it creates or casts the shadow. Now, the shadow in this space right here, in the vesicle of what you're being birthed through, family, friends, as I said earlier on, family, friends, all the events of your life are right here in this center point. If I always stay removing myself or trying to stay away from my experiences, I'm going to stay in observation. I'm going to stay in this observational defense. That means I'm not going to tap into the emotions. I'm going to stay emotionally absent. Peace, peace, peace. I'm going to stay emotionally absent and only use, remember, because the emotions have to be used. So if I'm emotionally absent, that means what goes into that space to bring balance? The emotions that I've not learned, the fear narrative, the anger, the sorrows, the pains, that's what takes center stage. So now all of my observations based in that survival complex, that oppression complex, being stuck in that complex, that's what I see inside of this space. So now inside of this space, the way that I see family, based on through the traumatic experiences, that's how I see family. Now my observation for me to stay emotionally absent, because you're emotionally absent as fuck, you'll give yourself that line or that thought process in your head where you're sitting there saying, I'm going to give everybody shit that I've never had. Then you ignore yourself. You ignore yourself. You remain emotionally absent. So now you're stuck in that space. Everything you're doing is based on physical or on emotional reaction. It's not emotional. You're not present emotionally. But when you're forced to sit there with yourself and there's something that you cannot shake yourself away from, and you're like, God damn, I remember sitting there a lot of times. Like, why do I feel the way that I feel about what they said to me? I'm supposed to be, it challenged that whole identity. It took me back to where I was, it took me back to that shadow. It took me back to that, it made me follow that yellow brick road back to that shadow, back to that identity that I left back there, my inner child, my adolescent self, one of the versions of myself back there. You out here trying to live that plot. I have a whole plot based on I was oppressed or I was told no. It could be something as simple as you were told no, that you didn't, that one time your mother told you no, you couldn't go out, and why? And she said, when you get grown, you'll understand. all the way to some deep shit to you sitting there and you had the extra disciplinary or the controlling father or the controlling figure in your life, and now you in a life where you feel like you still trying to control your emotions. You haven't embraced the power of your emotions. Embracing the power of emotions, that's your self-care. That's that self-love. That's that learning yourself. That's applying to yourself. When you're still trying to control those emotions, that's where the emotional manipulation happens. So now you in a space where you trying to control your emotions. Now you're trying to navigate yourself through your space, not trying to get triggered. But the triggers keep coming up. You keep trying to keep these states of avoidance. So now you got this entire space that you compartmentalize. All of your obstacles and everything that's here's the craziest part about it. You think you're compartmentalizing your life. Obstacles, opportunities, obstacles, opportunities, obstacles, opportunities. Whatever you want to say. Here are my opportunities, here are my obstacles. Here's the thing. You just took that coin and turned it this way like this. So now on one side you got your obstacles and on the other side you got your opportunities. They're the same shit. You just took you just split it down the middle. That same obstacle is your opportunity. That same opportunity is your obstacle. In the land of duality, you see it as separate. So you try to make it connect, but the emotional aspects keep leaving your ass burnt the fuck out. Think about when you becoming burnt out with yourself. You running and 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 running, running around the fucking world, doing all this shit, and then you tired. It's because your emotional intelligence ain't at that level. Your emotions ain't at that level. You living off reactions. You living off the reactions. The thing that fucks our heads up is because we used to see it as that's affecting me and I'm not affecting it. So you looked outside of yourself and everything that came into your life, you thought that was affecting you. Congratulations. You are the effect. That is the cause, or that is the result of you affecting your presence in the space. Whether you were in that space physically or you were in that space fully emotionally. That's why when it comes to the end of it, the chaos happened, that shit start breaking down, you're being forced to be emotionally present. You went 10, 12, 9, all those years being emotionally absent. That's why every time you try to run back into the space to try to be emotional again or activate emotion was only based on reaction. So it gave you that feeling of, oh my God, it chimed into your insecurity, the wound that opened up that space. It chimed into your jealousy. This shit was already deeply rooted. It chimed into that first. That's what was activated. But as long as you keep going based on reaction, you always going to stay in your comfort zone. As long as you're able to react to it, you stay in your comfort zone. And then you create other aspects based on that. Because you got that circle, this circle, create this circle in the center. Let's get into some sacred geometry. So what would I need to do to stay within my comfort zone? I need to create another circle of events, or I need to create another cycle to go through avoiding my experiences. At the same time, not observing my experiences. So I just got to create another circle. So now I got this circle over here. In this circle, I'm going to put my family. In this circle, I'm going to put my family. The only way you can build the circle is you can't build peace if you still stuck in survival mode. I couldn't build peace when I was stuck in survival mode. Because survival mode, I must stay in a state of duality, stay in a state of split. So I need an antagonist and a protagonist. So I need to prove something. So now you got to look at your space in your life. What are you trying to prove? Who are you trying to prove it to? Who are you competing with? You got that whole family dynamic in the center of that circle based on the emotional experiences. Now you sitting there trying to, I got to do this with my family. I got to do this because, I'm trying to prove that you went through your entire life because your mother was not in your life or how your mother was in your life based on the experiences, creating proving grounds or stepping into spaces that were basically proving grounds. So you can prove to this illusion, this emotional obstacle or projection that you created, so your mom can see you're looking at your mom through the trauma and the energy still coming through that traumatic experience. Your mother wasn't there. Why? Your mother showed you neglect. Why? I don't know why. She could have been there though. You still stuck in the imprint or the impression of only based on what you saw. So as long as you're stuck in what you saw, that's all you're going to see. That's all you're going to come into. Because now you're going into that space, it's forcing you to be emotionally present. Remember last week we talked about that emotional dumping. That's the reaction. So what did you create based on you not being emotionally present? You didn't look at it emotionally. Use that emotional intellect with yourself. This is why I created this space. That's why I keep you switching out motherfuckers and they only can connect to the same train of thought, the same emotional frequency. So if you had 3, 10, 15, whole bunch of friends, and they were all based on antagonists of survival and oppression, then you remove one of these motherfuckers because they went too far. So they would challenge you to step out of your comfort zone to see how far you would go. And then you try to replace that space, it's going to be the same shit. They're doing the same exact thing. You got motherfuckers out here right now that are 35, 36, 37, 50. 50. You can meet motherfuckers that are in there that is 20, 22, 23, age the 23, 24, whatever. And they have a grasp that you're looking at motherfuckers that are in their 40s that they don't have. There's a difference between you being in this space and you're doing it from the filter of the wound and you truly doing the internal work to match your external space. See, a lot of times when we stuck in this space, we don't slide down to that authentic credibility versus that survival skill set. Your survival skill set depends on the external. It depends on the external standard. You need the external narrative because you still think the external is affecting your internal. You still thinking everything outside of your house is affecting what's inside of your house. I remember every time my pops had an argument in this protection aspect and protecting, he was like, I'm trying to protect y'all from what's going on out there. Not understanding that the only shit that we saw out there, the only shit we got involved in out there was only based on what was going on inside the space, what was going on inside the house. The internal conflicts that were coming out into the first level of the space that created our identities, created our beliefs, created all that was created inside that house. So everything outside of that space is going to be in reaction to what the fuck happened inside the space. Because I'm affecting my reality. My reality is not affecting me. If I see my reality is affecting me, then I will use it to stay absent. I'll be absent as shit. I'll stay physically present based on that. I'll stay physically present based on a reaction. So physical reactions. You got that job. Physical reaction. What was the reason you got the job? Because I needed money. I needed a place to stay. I needed this, this, and this. All right, cool. Now look at the opportunities. Now, yeah, straight bullets ain't really straight. They hit exactly who they need to hit. You still are literally, for most of us, when it goes through this traumatic experience, your true self, your authentic self is still sitting in that room in your mom's house, in your dad's house, wherever you were raised, that's house. That's where you still at. So you can't be present anywhere else, only based on the imagination of a little kid. Go watch Rugrats and go look at they had whole fucking conversations about the show Rugrats. Like they said, Rugrats, Angelica, she imagined everybody. She imagined Phil, Lil, Chucky, Tommy. She imagined all of them. None of them motherfuckers existed. She created the antagonist, which was Susie. She created all of them motherfuckers. That's what you're doing. You're creating things so you can stay reacting to shit. That's the survival complex. That's why everything outside of you, that's why trauma sells. Everything that's navigated towards trauma sells. You're in the trauma realm. You're in the training ground. That's why they can use everything emotionally against you, because it's only showing you your lack of emotional presence. Your inability to use your emotional presence. Embrace your emotional power. You just want to keep control of your emotions. That's why you keep reacting to what you keep reacting to. Man, I gotta go get man, they ain't gonna let me get everything from, think about it like this. Back in the 90s, there's niggas still doing it, there's motherfuckers still saying it. Back in the 90s, the biggest thing that motherfuckers always said that I remember coming up, when I was coming up, was, yo, you never can start a business because the banks ain't gonna give you no loan. That one thought, that one stream of thought led me to college, going to college, and everything that I was doing. And then when I got done with college, so when I was done with college, why didn't, if it was based on my authentic self, the authentic credibility of me, why didn't I go straight to go do it? Because I didn't have the emotional reaction. I didn't have, me being in that physical space, that piece of paper, I got a reaction from it. I got my parents and people saying, I'm proud of you. Ooh, you went to school. I'm proud of you, da-da-da-da. Stuck in this hope or this dream speech. So now that I'm feeling good about it, now I get lost again. Because now there's emotions that I've never experienced. There's shit that I didn't learn. The trauma comes back up. The events come back up. All of that shit come back up to the surface. Whether I acknowledge it or not, it comes to the surface. But wait, the same person that said they were happy for me was the same person that robbed me when I was little. Or the same person, that's why I was so hard on you, because you needed that discipline in your life and da-da-da-da-da to this, and this. So now I'm stuck in this space emotionally, trying to live out their emotions, live out those shadows. That's why I say the first shadows that you're going to come into contact with, they're not even your shadows, or the false shadows, or we say the false gods, or the false aspect, or the false principles, false doctrines, all of that shit. That's the same thing as you talking about motherfuckers getting mad as motherfuckers are agents and all that shit. That you still living out the same cycle of complex. You still living it out. You still living out the same script based on your survival. You're not seeing it or assessing it and like, oh shit, this is showing me how to be emotionally available, to be emotional present or emotionally available to myself. It ain't about me being emotionally available to anybody else. It's about me being to me myself first. It's about me learning about myself. It's about me stop looking for things to cling to so I don't have to do it. Because 9 times out of 10, when somebody brings a conversation to you and it makes you feel some type of way, the longer that you want to stay avoiding it, like you sitting there like, I don't know why I did this. I was just in that space because it fit, and motherfucker said go do it, so I did it, and now I didn't get the now I don't know what to feel now. I don't know what to do next because it's not your vision, that hope, that dream mentality based in that survival complex. They gonna get us out the hood. They got a whole movie right now going with Venus and Serena where they got King Richard, or their dad. It's just basically gonna be the story of their dad with the Venus and Serena shit. There's gonna be motherfuckers getting caught up in that right now. Oh my God, all this shit that their dad did for them, and they went and did what they did just to keep your ass emotionally attached to some shit. Same thing they did with the fucking Harriet Tubman movie. Same thing they did with the Muhammad Ali movie. Same thing they did with all these fucking movies. Same thing they do with everything that they do is to keep you emotionally attached to some shit. Instead of you experiencing, oh, see, that's why I don't do that. Same reason you go up and down your timeline, but you like Roots. Do you want to shut yourself out of Roots? Go watch Goodbye Uncle Tom. Roots was an after school special compared to Goodbye Uncle Tom. And I watched Goodbye Uncle Tom 3-4 times. I watched Goodbye Uncle Tom in full. I watched Goodbye Uncle Tom in full 4 times. I still haven't finished Roots. After the 4th installment of Roots, nigga, what the fuck am I watching this for? That's not where I want to be, so why the fuck do I want to be there? Exactly. I'm studying what not to do. Everything in your space got a fucking purpose. But when I'm emotionally detached from shit, don't want to deal with the emotion, I only look at what I don't want in my life. But I don't understand what I didn't want in my life. All those slave fucking movies. All the slave movies. See, that was the light that okay. I look at all those slave movies like when they did Noah and a Viking movie or movies like that or Star Wars. Same fucking premise and the same NLP or the same neurological logistic programming, same NLP centers being used into that space. Similar to the same, you don't really understand all to keep you trapped. And remember, we just said the outside is affected by my internal presence. So if I react to it, that's what I mean by if I can react to it, I can look at it, if I can keep creating antagonists, I can keep proving myself or being a pro at something. I'm trying to prove, or i.e., I'm trying to be the pro in my life and trying to change my family's narrative. I'm trying to give my kids everything they never had. I'm trying to do this, and this. I'm trying to prove against my mother. I'm trying to prove against my father. I'm trying to prove against these people. What people? Remove the people. Remove the people. Remove the people. Remove everything in your environment. Close your eyes and sit in the dark. What the fuck do you see? You don't see shit. All right, cool. Take it to the next level. Close your eyes. Go sit in front of a mirror. Close your eyes. Light some fucking candles around the mirror, in between you and that mirror. Close your eyes for about 15 minutes. Open your eyes. What do you see? All you see is you. It's always been you. All you seeing is yourself in the different aspects of your survival, whether it's on survival or you want true peace. If it's based on my survival mode, my survival skill set, then everything in my space is now defined by my skill set. One of the hardest things to deal with when coming out of traumatic experiences and dealing with yourself is coming into that authentic credibility. Because your authentic credibility is shown to you through your insecurities, your doubts, your jealousies, all of that shit. Now you actually got to build some shit. It's easy to live inside of your trauma because you ain't got to do nothing. You just got to physically show the fuck up. But you can stay emotionally absent. But if I'm no longer emotionally absent in my life, that means what I mean by emotional absence is the ability to assess, the ability to reflect, the ability to learn, the ability to absolve, the ability to accept, apologize, acknowledge where the fuck I stood out in that, why I was present in that space, how I created it. Versus that's me embracing my energy. That's me bringing my power back to me. I don't know how many light workers I heard talk about, go ahead and call your power back to you. But what they don't tell you on the other end, every conduit of where your power was, you call your power back to you, now your ex-boyfriend back in your life. You call your power back to you, now your mama pop back up in your life that you've been avoiding. You call your power back now, every motherfucker that you've been avoiding, that you've been trying to stay emotionally distant from, pop up back in your life. You said you wanted your power back. You got to define what it was. That's where your power came from. That's where you put your power into before you even came down onto this damn shit. Now you got to go through the emotional aspect and go past the reaction, past this expectancy with yourself. Yeah, now you facing yourself. Now you sitting there in that space like, but my mom still don't love me. What does my mother's love for me got to do with me? Remember, you got to go past the point of reaction. My mother did everything. My mother did everything that she could do in her space based on her experiences, my pop's experiences, go a little deeper, my father's experiences, and then to create the cross point of the observation. Yeah. When one removes the excuses, you are now shown access. When you remove the excuses, you are now given access. The key is, what are you given access to? The access is not conditioned. The access is not your skill set. The access is not, ooh, I can go back to doing this. The access is the truer aspects of you, of the emotional presence, where you need to be at. It's not about using your emotions to manipulate shit anymore. You now have to accept that in the spaces where you were where you felt emotionally manipulated, betrayed, cheated on, they were all a part of the process. Because what did you learn when the motherfucker betrayed you? They betrayed your trust. How did they, if you really trusted yourself, ask yourself the real question. If you trusted yourself, how can somebody misuse your trust if you truly trust yourself? How can somebody misuse your trust if you really trust yourself? That means you didn't really know yourself. How can somebody betray you if you're not first betraying yourself? If you didn't know yourself in the first place? How? Yeah, it hurts. Yeah, it hurts. Yeah, it stings. Yeah, it makes you feel some type of way. Yeah, it manipulates. Yeah, it warps your mind, the traumatic experience. But there's a lesson in it. Craziest thing about your intuition. There's a difference between intuition and your emotional ear. See, in your authentic self, you listen to your intuition is there. Your intuition is going to tell you shit that's going to challenge you outside of your comfort zone. Your emotional ear, based on your survival skills, your little Swiss knife of survival skills, you'll sit there and sit in that space. And let's use an example on some external shit. The nigga that you got with or the chick that you got with didn't have shit. Didn't have anything. They gave you a whole story about not having anything. So you thought they were being vulnerable with you. No, they were using emotional intellect. They were playing to your survival skill set. Something you can agree to. Something you can agree to. Oh my God, you went through that? And your baby mother did what? And your baby father did what? And they did what to you? Nah, come over here a little bit. Come chill over here. So you got emotionally invested into them based on that. Because you're like, ooh, somebody gave me a chance to react, to be emotionally, this false sense of emotional, they gave me an emotional obstacle to avoid my own emotions. So if I can prove to them in this mindset, if I can prove to them that I can be everything that they need, I can prove to myself or to my mom, my pops, whoever did me dirty, that I wasn't a fuck up, that I wasn't an accident. These are the types of shit that went through my mind a lot of times in a lot of relationships. So I ignored a lot of things. So I did things based in necessity. So it always came up to the point where I wasn't really ever emotionally invested. I was physically invested based on emotional reaction. So if they said something, oh my God, you are the best ever. It validated my identity. So now I can keep using that identity. I keep moving through that space. But on the other end, I had that paranoia or my intuition. I'm reading my intuition as paranoia. So I'm ignoring my intuition. My intuition is forcing me to ask the question in the form of the statement that I just made. Man, they ain't gonna love me because of this. Why don't you just ask them, Carlos? Why don't you just ask them, Lucifer? Just ask them. Man, if I ask them, if I say this to them, they're gonna feel some type of way. So I created an entire scenario in my damn mind. Exactly. Now I'm trying to prove inside of my mind, still living inside my head. Still living in the childlike impressions. The impressions that are in my mind are still stabilized because they help me maintain that. So the path of the heart is still closed the fuck off. I ain't even traveling through that shit. So now I keep going into these spaces and these shits are hits to my heart. Oh my God, it hit my, ooh. It put a crack in your heart. It put a crack in that shell. It's put in a crack so you can bring that shit back whole. Think about it to the aspect of your soul. Think about the aspects of your soul. And when your soul starts coming back to being whole. Your soul been scattered. Your soul was scattered. Go read the Pistis de Sophia. You remember the great mother took the bodies of the Titans and crumbled them and dropped them into humanity. Those are the aspects of your soul. Your soul been scattered all across the whole fucking globe or in your world, and now it's your job to bring them shits together. But you got to be ready to become whole, You ain't gonna come into that space because you can go through some cycles. You can go through cycles. You can go do the drugs and do whatever, but until you're ready to become whole, that shit ain't gonna hold. You just went through a cycle. I remember this point in time in my life when I was at the most peace because I was sitting to, you say the answer to yourself, I was sitting down to myself and I was cool to myself. All right, bet. What did you learn? You still playing out that same role when you said you were young and dumb. You still playing out that same role. Mm-hmm. You got to release yourself. You got to release your soul, the aspects or the fragments of your soul from the emotional attachments that you call family, that you call friends, that you call that relationship. All of these had aspects. They either had the lesson, or they had the direction to your soul, the direction to that fragment that you've been looking for. Inside of that space where that nigga brought you peace, that shorty brought you peace by letting you rub on her booty. That nigga gave you peace by by moisturizing your scalp. By moisturizing your scalp, or the shorty let you rub on her booty when your ass was stressed out. That was a lesson in understanding yourself. That was a lesson in embracing yourself. As crazy as it sounded, nigga, moisturize your scalp. Now, ever since you ain't been with that nigga, you ain't moisturized your scalp. Shorty rub on your head whenever your ass was tired. But the entire time, you didn't realize, like, nigga, maybe I should rub on my own shit. Maybe I need to massage my own mind. Maybe I need to go deeper than depending on this physical aspect for myself. Maybe I need to go deeper. These are those levels that you chinking into, and until you do that, that's why you keep creating this need for new shit in your life all the time. That one friend didn't work out. Now you need a new friend. That one relationship didn't work out. Now you need a new girlfriend. Now you need a new boyfriend. That nigga was emotionless. That bitch over there was crazy. Now you sitting there, if you love me, you stuck with me. Who the fuck? You love me, you stuck with me. Because you still trying to go through the narrative of if you love hard enough or if you give enough physical presence, then the emotions follow, or the emotions are masked, the emotional wound is being used based on the relationship between your mom and your pops, or your mom and her multiple boyfriends, or your dad and his multiple girlfriends or boyfriends, whatever the fuck they had, their life. So you ain't even got to your shadow yet. You still living in the shadow of your father. You still living in the shadow of the person that did the traumatic experience to you. That's what you're seeing through. So when we look at the aspect, when you look at, use one aspect, we use sexual trauma. When you use sexual trauma, in this sexual traumatic experience, 9 times out of 10, especially if it's done by a loved one or someone that was a loved one, everybody that you see is going to be a threat based on that person. Remember, you only magnify what you have. If I was an insecure ass nigga when I started my platform and started doing my work, I would only maximize my insecurity. If I was using the aspects of being a narcissist and all of those aspects, when I go into the space, I would only magnify that. I only can magnify what the fuck I am. The universe don't give the higher power, God, whoever you call him in your journey, they only give you to what you are to help you expand out of that space. If you got it, what you gonna do when you get it? Some motherfuckers right now, you sitting in your head right now saying that you want the house, the $1 million, you want the car, you want all this shit. But when you're given the opportunities to become more efficient, to become closer to that stream of thought, become emotionally present, to assess your emotions, to create that byproduct, you don't want to do it. You'll get scared. No, I don't want to do that part. What you will do is, in the physical aspect, you'll go grab the book, you'll go watch the lecture, you'll go watch 72 hours of fucking on Sinetta TV. You'll go watch Young Pharaoh. You'll go watch anybody that has an antagonist against something that can keep you avoided from yourself. Think about what comes into your space. Think about the opportunities that are brought to you inside of your space. Yeah. That nigga over there talking about the white man, the enemy. I need to start fucking with him. I'm going to keep fucking with him because he know where it's at. Okay, cool. That's nice. I ain't got no enemies. I ain't got no internal conflicts. So now I can see it for what it is. That don't mean, but now I got to go. Remember, I'm going past the point of reaction. I can spend, for example, I can spend some hours and make up a whole decisive dissertation about how these niggas is emotionally wounded and shit. I can do that, but that's not my job. That's not my purpose. Exactly. That's not my job. That's not my purpose. That would put deflection in between what I'm really supposed to be doing. I don't see through bias. Do you know the traveling path to no longer react based on bias? To no longer look at things from a biased perspective. Do you know how much that changed? Like, that changed everything that ever happened into my space. Because now I'm not seeing on bias, so the needs went away. The wants went away. The need for the need for the lesson through the friendship went away. As I learned the lesson, that friendship or that point that was for me to learn a lesson went away. And I know that it went away because now when I cycle back around, this is when you see the meme talking about they come back in your life to test you. That's the test. That's the quiz. They come back in your life saying the same things, bringing up old memories. Y'all remember when we did this? Now it's your opportunity to use your throat chakra. It's your opportunity to use your throat chakra. Not sit there and smile and eat food you don't eat no more. That's the worst thing that you ever going to do. You going over to a space, the food that you don't eat no more, an example. Conversations that you've had with yourself when you healed about. Things that you dealt with. And now this is the trick. You go into that space based on your level of your experiences. You still trying to save them? Or what do you say after you say to a certain point? Most of the time when you go into a space and you say what it is in your truth of yourself based on the example, hey, maybe you need some time to yourself. That's when whenever they get hellified emotional, the only thing follows it is going to be a projection anyway. But you got to have a plan first. You got to have that's your authentic your credibility based on your authenticity. It's not based on, because remember, your survival skill set, everybody that you met based on traumatic experiences, they came to you based on your survival skill set. Everything that you had that you got based in survival. That car that you used to go to work, that was based on survival mindset. So now you got that same car, it's over here in your authentic credibility. Now you got to look at how you keep things together. It's all based on how you keep things together. Remember, that emotional aspect, that emotional dumping, that shit always got to go somewhere. The karma relationships ain't supposed to last. But I want them to be, no, that it don't last. Think about it like this. 1 second. Think about it like this. Every space that you go into is a chance to maximize the obstacle or the emotional presence or your physical presence. Yeah, karmic relationships do not last because they're not. A karmic relationship is only based on the level of the lessons that are supposed to be learned within that space. Give you an example, and to go even further, karmic relationships are just not friendship, are just not love interests. Remember, this is breaking that barrier between sex being simply physical and understanding that's the sacred energy exchange. Your energy is all in one. Your energy level. Twin flames are your karmic relationships. Twin flames are karmic relationships. When you looking at a space, it's just not the love interest. It's anything that's inside of your space. You can be with your sister, your brother, the sister that you're closest to, the brother, the cousin, the relative that you're closest to. The relationship between you two can be a karmic relationship. It's a karmic relationship. It carried on from a previous cycle. It just came into this space. Instead of y'all being boyfriend, girlfriend, or husband and wife, or whatever it was in that previous cycle, you could have been the husband, they could have been the wife, or they could have been the brother, you could have been the sister. In this space, it came back together. Now y'all brother and sister. So that's when you start looking at these bonds and why you held into that space. All of that ties into your, oh shit, nigga, I didn't know. Yeah. That's why I can look at, that's when I looked at the relationships with my brother, my sisters, my littlest sister, and I knew that they were karmic bonds from previous cycles. I just rolled the dice and put them all in the same pot in my soul contract this time because I knew what I was supposed to be doing. So it's like the relationships are no longer the same. The emotional attachment is no longer there. Yeah, like the emotional attachment is no longer there. Like literally, like, give you an example. You can be in a relationship with you can be in a whole fucking relationship right now, and the bond that you guys have is like a sister-brother bond and brother-sister bond or whatever. Y'all could have been brothers and sisters in a previous cycle. That's why y'all came together in this cycle to assess and learn that bond, to learn what that bond truly was and what that bond truly came through. This is why you give yourself some relationships. Remember, when we understand your energy and that sacred energy exchange, every relationship that you go into is based on the level of intimacy with yourself. You being emotionally present with yourself. The more emotionally present I became with myself, the less need that I felt, the less of a need that I felt to be physically reactive. The best way to learn where the bond came from, research, look back at the feelings of it's more into the feeling of the narrative. It's different for every person. Like I'll use myself as an example to build. I remember one of my cousins. I remember the relationship between one of my cousins. Me and her were like fucking close as shit. She was mad protective of me. I was mad protective of her. Like we were protective as hell of each other. Like when people saw us around each other, like she literally, I remember one time we were like, this was like 9th grade. I was in the 9th grade. She was in the 11th grade. I remember one time we were like, yo, you defend your cousin like he's your fucking man. She was like, probably was in a past life. Like in that middle of that cycle, I didn't even care. I was like, later on down the line, I'm going through meditations and purpose and periods. And I remember one time I had a whole fucking dream. And I'm like, the woman that I'm involved with in the dream, she had the characteristics of my cousin. And then that's when I was like, oh my God, I'm having a dream about having sex with my cousin. But I had to fight past the reaction. And I really had to sit there. I sat there with it. I was like, and I'm looking at the history. I'm like really looking at my chart. I'm like, all this information is coming to me because I moved past the point of reaction. I was like, damn. Shit. That was a past life experience coming to this moment and point. Yeah. So I'm sitting there like, oh shit. But that's how we like. You're looking at it based on. Remember, you're shedding the identity. You have to shed this moral compass. You got to shed that feeling to that thought process of niggas gonna think this. Or, no, you're understanding an aspect of yourself. That's what they're there for. After Bobby Hemmett broke that shit down the best. After the child rearing phase, these motherfuckers are not related to you. I can go see my you need to pay. Yeah. It's all being told to you in your dreams. You have to go into this space with you're coming into this space with yourself where you gotta this is what I mean by when people say let everything go, the way I interpret letting everything go is letting go of everything that maintains the reality. You're not letting go of people. You're letting go of you're letting go of the condition that you put into that space, that false sense of morals, that false sense of thought that you brought into that space, that emotional definition that you used into that space to really see them for what the fuck they are. Because a lot of times you getting stuck with people and you got a motherfucker telling you you gotta remove you gotta remove that label, the labels. You gotta remove the label. Because until I remove the label, for example, until I remove the label of my brother, because I always had the feeling that my brother was just another nigga. But I had to remove that label of my brother. It doesn't change the experiences that I had with my brother. It don't change the experiences that I had with my sisters, family. It doesn't change the experiences. It just opens up. The label is the excuse in this context that is being removed so I can now assess and learn from it. So I can now be emotionally present into that space instead of being physically reactive based on the label, because it's the label that make you react. It's the label that makes you react. That's why you fight so hard for the fucking label. That's my husband. That's my wife. We gonna be married one day. You fight for that label because that label can hide your behavior. It hides your pattern. It hides your habits. It hides the true routines that you need to do for yourself. That's what hides it. You're literally your ancestors. Been here, rebirth over and over and over again. Think about your rebirth. Literally, every time you go to sleep, come back, you reincarnated. What are you coming back as? Every time you lay down, every time you meditate, every time you bring yourself into a state of being emotionally and physically present, you come back as something else. What are you coming back as? When you go to sleep at night, when you wake back up, what do you come back as? Do you come back as more and more of the identity? Think about it like this. When you wake up in the morning, what is your routine? What do you do? Simple example. When you wake up in the morning, do you pick up your phone or do you pick up a bottle of water? This is the flow. This is flowing. This is my flow. This is me controlling my flow, honoring my thoughts, controlling my flow. This is me finding my identity. Everything that's on here is I've already pre-put into my phone anyway. This is me finding my damn identity. Let me go on Facebook real quick. Let me go on Instagram. Let me look at my emails. Every time I hit that damn. This is my identity. All right, cool. Let me pick up my phone, look at my emails real quick. Let me look at my emails. All right, cool. That's the identity I'm going to choose today. Let me look at Facebook real quick. Let me look at my Facebook. Oh, shit. They talk about the virus. So I'm going to go. So now I got a reason for my emotions to exist. So I woke up to be emotionally present or emotionally reactive. Let me look at that right there. That's your identity. What do you do when you wake up? I ask people, like, what do you do when you wake up? Are you building are you going into authentic credibility of building yourself? Or are you maintaining your skill set? What are you learning when you go to sleep? What do you do when you go to sleep? All of these little aspects in yourself, you talking about you got a purpose. Your purpose is based on the authenticity of you building into yourself. You are defining yourself, creating that definition for yourself. Hit him with that damn. Creating that definition of you. Not you sitting there, your skill set. Your skill set based on survival will leave your ass fucking stuck every fucking time. My survival skill set had me working the same fucking job. Much, much, much gratitude. My skill set had me working the same job in 50 million different fucking ways. And just repeating that same shit over and over and over again. To say that I could do some shit. To give myself this false sense of validation in my space of where I was at. So I can stay emotionally absent. Moving on that, I can ride on the other emotions of others. You work in a restaurant, you stuck in restaurants. I remember being stuck in a restaurant. Guess what I got to depend on inside of a restaurant? I got to depend on niggas to be hungry. That means I got to depend on motherfuckers wanting to be sentimental. That means I got to be dependent upon them niggas. I need the niggas that come into the restaurant during tax season to come spend their tax money. I need the old people that are trying to celebrate their anniversary to come into my space, to come into the restaurant so I can get paid. I need that. I need that to happen. I needed the motherfuckers that are around me not doing their fucking job so I can look like I'm the best, so I can get biggie, so I can keep getting that validation from my boss. I needed that shit. But it was different when I didn't need it. Because as long as I needed that, based on my skill set, I never could be emotionally available. I had to keep my emotions out of the space. I needed that relationship to go that way so I didn't have to be emotionally invested into that space. But at the end of the relationship, what would happen? You sitting there with emotions that you never even understood. Exactly. I needed, in order for me to feel anything, I needed the motherfucker to want party drugs so I can go make party drugs. Without them, I didn't exist. Without them, my shadow did not have an identity. I didn't have an identity. Because what would I do without it? What do I do without them? You keep creating all these damn antagonists in your life. Then compartmentalize it into making obstacles your opportunity. So you avoid yourself. That's why it's so easy for the shit to be imprinted into your mind when you get stuck on niggas is racist. The preserving of behaviors, patterns, and habits. So, if I'm not in control, if I want to keep the same behavior based on obstacles and oppression and struggle, guess what I gotta have in my space? I gotta have something that polices or keeps me in that checkpoint so I can stay in my comfort zone. Because remember, your comfort zone is just based on how you can react. So if I go into a space knowing that the cop's gonna look at me a certain way in a certain space, it keeps me in the same reaction. I keep behaving the same way, acting the same way, because I'm looking for it. The only difference between the opportunist or the motherfucker that says it out loud and the motherfucker that don't say it out loud. I'm going around to white people. Why? They don't exist to me. They really don't exist. When I see them, same fucking face. When I see, it's the same fucking shit. They only can react a certain way. They only gonna move a certain way based on my perception. They really not there. They're like, you look like them motherfuckers to stop. How they stopping you? Let's go back to what I talked about earlier on. My aspects of me now being the occult therapist, the occult psychologist, creating that groundbreaking in that space. I had to overcome the old narratives that were based in reaction or comfort. I could not use. This is the lesson in you becoming true to your authentic self and not trying to survive. Survival is not based in proving shit to anyone. That's why I always say study all and follow none. I study all and follow none. To that mind, you got to put yourself in that space. Because as long as I'm in that survival mode, I'm always trying to prove some shit. As long as I'm in survival mode, I'm always trying to prove some shit. That means I got to follow a certain cadence. That means if I got to speak to somebody through fear, that means if somebody's living in a fear-like complex, I got to speak through the fear cadence. I can jazz it up, do hand gestures and all that shit. I can give them it. I only can use examples that are based on the fear cadence. That means I got to stay in bias. That means I got to make sure they stay in a certain cognitive dissonance. That means I cannot let them go past a certain space. That means I cannot provide a service that goes after that effect. I need them to be emotionally invested I need them to stay emotionally absent. I need them to stay physically in there. I need them to stay in a physically reactive state. That's what you look at outside of your space. That's the space you create based on the survival complex. You need everybody around you to react a certain way. It don't matter how they react as long as they react. That's what it boils all the way down to. So now look at the example of relationships. How many times have you had the homegirl tell you? I remember hearing whole fucking stories, and while I was in just going through life, and like, yeah, we ain't had sex in like a week, so he cheating on me. I'm like, what the fuck made you go to that idea? We ain't had sex in 4 days, so he cheating on me. He getting it from somewhere else. Every nigga need pussy. Who said? Because I need to get broke off, so I know that nigga need to get broke off. Your insecurity showing. Your self-worth is showing. Your doubt is showing. Yeah, you just learn how to cope with that shit. Because if you really sat inside some of the spaces with yourself and you became emotionally present when the emotion came up, what are you really doing for yourself? I remember a lot of times earlier on in those spaces with myself, I remember sitting in a space and I remember like trying to prove something to people. That was the only reason I kept things in my space. In the reality of myself, I only kept things in my space so I had something. So I had a proving board. So I'm gonna prove myself to that person. I'm gonna prove myself to this. That's the only reason the motherfuckers were in the space. They were the antagonists. So now I had to look how I created my space. This motherfucker over here that I'm saying, this motherfucker is an echo of me saying that niggas are afraid of their emotions. So now I have an excuse to react in the emotional context of how I'm reacting, because that motherfucker is there to show that, yo, that's what it looked like for me not to do it. That's what emotional intellect looked like. That's my definition of it. I brought it into my space. I use that. I feed from that. That's its presence. That's what it's there for. That's why it becomes hard as hell for you to say no to motherfuckers. For me now, take to this aspect. Imagine going to somebody's house Imagine going to somebody's crib and they make some fucking food. Yeah. The antagonist and the protagonist, they're both a part of the manipulation. Without the antagonist, the protagonist doesn't exist. And without the protagonist, the antagonist doesn't exist. You need one or the other. If you want to stay emotionally detached, you need if you want to stay in a state of emotional reaction, you need an antagonist. If you want to stay in a state of emotional detachment, you need a protagonist. You need somebody that's pro this or pro whatever it is. So now think about your space and think about yourself in your life. That condition that you put onto the relationship. If you love me, you would do this. You're creating an antagonist. If they agree, they're a protagonist. Therefore, you can now you can react in a certain emotional key or a certain emotional cue. If they don't, now they're an antagonist. Now you can retract your emotions from the space, using your emotions as a whole fucking weapon. How do you use your emotions as a whole fucking weapon? I ain't gonna get that nigga now for a couple weeks. Man, I'm about to go over to the strip club. Fuck what the hell she thought. You manipulating the space just like they manipulating the space. Both of y'all in the same space having this whole damn space manipulating, and then you trying to say that the other person, remember we talked about that, like you trying to manipulate, and they try, both of y'all manipulating. That's why when somebody comes in to mediate, and neither one of y'all are ready for mediation, y'all go turn your energy on towards them. That's when you're going to it's not really a time. The space is when you go into the wholeness of as you're coming into the wholeness of yourself. The antagonist and the protagonist, or these two polarities, exist because you're sitting in the center and you're not it's like you're not bringing yourself into being whole. Use an example. White people are bad. Black people got to support my black people. All right, cool. Through my experiences, I can look at the white people that were in my life. From my mentor, some of my best mentors were in that space. I learned lessons from them. I learned lessons about myself. I went to a certain extreme into that space, bringing myself closer. Where I was emotionally invested, where I need to become physically invested in understanding my emotions. The black dynamic. Now I'm in this space. I have to do the same thing on this side. So now when I look at something that says support, I support everything black, even if it ain't good, in my mind, as me being authentic with myself and only striving for me becoming the best version of myself. Anything that is not at its best, if I have the ability to support it, the way that I will support it is not based on emotion. It's going to be based on the physical aptitude or the knowledge that I have. So now in other spaces where I'm usually reacting based on a physical content, now it's time for me to be emotionally available or the emotional intelligence. So now I no longer need this antagonist to stay emotionally away. Yeah. Getting to your best self. To break it down is getting to your best self and into the desire of yourself without the guilt, without the insecurity, without the doubt, without those being the predecessor, or without those being the precondition, the preset conditions. I do not walk into a space and feel insecure because 9 times out of 10 when I'm going into spaces anyway, motherfuckers squinting like this or looking at me, or they can't look at me directly. They can't get to my life. Exactly, my rebirth. I'm a whole different frequency of light going into that space. And that's a beautiful, warming feeling. It's when everything gets to feel all warm and you don't feel the need to react. is when you go into a space and you feel warm and it doesn't get attached to anger, sorrow, depression, the need to prove, disrespect. It's when it doesn't hit those blockages that you put in play, those handicaps, your crutches. When I walk into, for example, when I walk into like the health food store down here, Sprouts, when I walk into Sprouts, it's mainly usually white people in that motherfucker anyway. I don't feel no type of way when I go into the space. I don't feel like I'm being judged. Motherfuckers is following me. None of that shit. I don't care if they are, if they not. 9 times out of 10, if a motherfucker's following me and they see me picking up stuff in my cart, 9 times out of 10, they come and ask me, hey, what are you making with the stuff you got in your cart? That looks very interesting. And I tell them what the fuck I'm making. Damn, that looks very fucking delicious. Regardless if it's a guy's or they trying to, I'm not thinking about that shit. You can't get none of this energy because you can't use those same emotional cadences. The only reason somebody can feed off of you is because you're still on that emotional cadence. The only reason something in a degenerative behavioral state can feed or be super angry all the time to trigger your anger is because your anger is still present. So instead of looking at them as a cadence that is an obstacle, it is an opportunity for me to learn something about myself. Why do I feel that way? Instead of me trying to put it behind the guise of, I'm trying to protect my people. I'm trying to do this and I'm trying to do that. I don't try to do anything. I simply execute. When you're in that harmony space, you simply execute. You honor your thoughts, no matter what your thought may be. If you have a thought that seems very fucking risky, you see a nigga walking down the street nigga got sweatpants on, and you see that nigga print, you don't feel no type of way about having that thought. I talked about this in the sex lecture. You don't have no type of way about having that thought. But instead of you using it to fill in the cracks, you bring it to the highest aspect of yourself. That means you see yourself in that space of, instead of you seeing your insecurities, you see the way to defeat your insecurity. So you see a nigga walking down the street, that nigga like he in shape, like nigga drinking a whole fucking smoothie. And instead of you looking at him like, that nigga probably like white women or this, and this, you see yourself in that scape, becoming emotionally invested into yourself, becoming emotionally present, and then they are an illusion. You start to see, because all you're seeing is yourself. You're seeing the things about yourself that you have not yet assessed. Same thing when you see Shorty. You see Shorty in the gym. Why did you go to the gym in the first place? Because it's always going to lead back to why you went there in the first place. It's always going to show you what the fuck you really are doing. It's always going to show you what you really, your true desire of yourself. Your eyes only show you what you desire to see. Either an obstacle or an opportunity, based on the catalyst of understanding of yourself. So if you go into, if everywhere that you, let's say you in a whole damn relationship, everywhere you go, your man work out, your shorty work out, and motherfuckers are noticing her for that. She has no predisposed thought, but your insecurity flares up, your doubt flares up, all that shit flares up. Why is that on them? Yeah, you can't be doing all that, going out there with the, I'm not doing this for that. That's a byproduct. From the lowest of the low, from the highest of the high, I'm going to feed while I'm here. That's your insecurity. Where did that come from? That's the survival skill set. You feel if you can react to it emotionally, now you can say what you feel. Because you have to get to a point with yourself. Emotional maturity is getting to a point to where you can have a conversation and you're not looking for those emotional taglines or looking for behavioral points that are emotional taglines in the script. That means you ain't looking for, if they say this in the script, like use the script when it says, this nigga said no, turn head to the side. You're not looking for that to happen anymore. You're looking at that, you're like, oh, this is usually where I turn my head to the side. This is usually when I jump out and say something. This is usually when I do this. This is the time when I do this. Because what you're going to notice is when you start dealing with higher level energies of yourself, it's only based on a reflection of you were used to, and where did you learn it from? Where did that learned behavior come from? Where did you learn that behavior? Without even thinking about it. That's what imprints. It's like walking, it's like going into the living room and having the TV on as background noise. You are not listening, you're not paying attention to it, but it's connecting to everything that's already there. That's the same thing when you go into spaces where you know you ain't supposed to be going any fucking way. You go into the space, you wondering why you angry, you wondering why you upset, you wonder why you hungry as hell. When you left your friend house or whatever, you're feeding those emotions of that space. You ain't ate chicken wing. You've been fasting for 3 days now. Then you go around some motherfuckers that are not eating anything, but they remind you of an aspect of your old self and how you used to feed your emotions. And now all of a sudden, you want some wet lemon pepper wings. Even though you ain't had chicken, you ain't had wings in 10 fucking months, but all of a sudden now you want chicken wings. You're feeding that emotional presence. That emotional aspect is coming to the surface and it needs to be fed. That identity or that shadow, it needs to be fed. How do you feed it? Sitting at the wing stop, it needs to be fed. How are you feeding it? That's what you're looking into. That missing aspect of not having a true sister in your life because your sister was your daughter. You had to raise your siblings from a young age. You had kids at a young age. Now you're in desperate need of a sister because you never experienced having a sister before. So now you, based on the level of physical presence and the emotional aptitude of what you learned of what a sister is, based on raising your sister, based on raising your brother, based on raising your cousins or raising kids ever since you were little. Now you know what you don't want, or now you know what not to look for, or what you can build into a space. Now you go into that space. Now you got homegirls under the same guys that they ain't got their life together, and you wondering why they ain't got their life together. Guess what they're supposed to be showing you? They're showing you how you ain't got your shit together. They work and they make money and they live here and they do this and they do that. I don't know where all their money goes. Ask yourself the same question about your budget. You're only reacting to your own budget. Let me read that. Yeah, it's about embracing that shit. Like, that's embrace what the fuck it was. You're embracing that shadow or that the identity that you created. As an example, this was creating money as an example. The identity that she created while she was going to those clubs, that was a prevalent identity. That identity was based on her not allowed going to clubs when she was growing up. So she created the identity, the club chick the club girl that went to the club, that was an identity that she created. So now moving forward through your work, you got to acknowledge that club chick. What was that club chick's favorite food? What did she do? What did she eat? What was she about? Because all of those things feed into that identity. You got to bring that identity into the present. That identity is in the past. That identity is feeding the creation of the inner child. the lights, the sounds, the music, the smells, the senses. Yeah. Private. I don't know why I wasn't here. But yeah, when you're looking at those aspects, what was it? You got to explore why that identity was created. Why did you create it? What purpose did it serve? What was it created for? What abilities did you give it? What abilities did you give it? What skill set did you give it? What that avatar that you basically created in the game, why did you create it? What was its purpose? You'll notice that the identities that you create, they ain't got no endpoint. If you notice, the identities that you create, when I go back to the identities I created, they had such a narrow life. And no matter what, I needed that identity need to go to that point. You might need to go look up yeah, that's a part of your that's a part of your soul, that's a part of your soul's mission. You gotta go study, get into, if you haven't, get into go study tribal dances, go look at Shiva, the dancing Shiva, go look at the dances, Kali Ma dances and stuff of that. All that, yeah. All of those aspects, all of your talents are gonna lead you back to yourself. Before we get off track, you have to look at yourself in true assessment. It's looking at that identity and going past the identity. The identity was created based on reaction to keep you in comfort. So if you look in the mirror, use the example, you look in the mirror and you see scars, you see wornness, you see so many tears. You're seeing that shit no one else is seeing. So you react based on that. So somebody that was always crying when they were little, always in a state of being sensitive when they were little, in their current state right now, they're always going to try to hide those tears. That emotional aspect, the emotional baggage. Then it only comes out based on reaction because it's festering. It's just sitting there. Energy does not die. It's continuously fed until it's released. That's that reaction aspect. I remember so many times in my life, the only time that I reacted emotionally was after a certain I already did it based on a certain level of buildup. Everything would come out of that space. Then I'm sitting there looking at everybody like, oh shit. Yo, I'm going through some things. So now every time I go into that space based on i.e. survival, that's what they would expect. A false sense of purpose or a false sense of potential for a space. Because now I got trauma bonds that I had for fucking years, and they expect me to never be in a good relationship. Or they expect me to overwork. They know that I'm going to overwork, so they don't have but they know when I come around, my guilt wound going to be present, so I'm going to try to take everybody out. You got that beginning, middle, and end. Remember, overworking yourself, that is not a compliment. I had to really think about it with myself. Overworking is not a fucking compliment. Working myself to a point to where I was emotionally raw, so when I go into a space, that same wound would pop back up, because that's all you're doing. You working yourself over and over and over again to prove to your pops that you actually can be everything that you said that you're going to be. But now every time now that you go into that space, that acceptance wound now becomes the physical aptitudes of what you bring into that space. So now you really got to think about, avoiding. Now you really got to think about why you wanted to get your mom that house. why you wanted to give your mom that crib, why you wanted to do this, why you were trying to do these things. Was it based on an emotional reaction, or was it really based on your authentic self, authentic credibility? Because that authentic credibility is very, very cold to the human narrative. That authentic accountability is very, very cold to the human narrative, because it's not about giving. It's not about giving. It's not about giving under the guise of expecting something from it. See, that control of your emotions, those conditions you create, whether you realize you create conditions or not, that's based on the emotional manipulation of that space, because you're expecting something. You have a condition based on what you're going to do inside of that space. That controls your emotions. That means if you do this, this, and this, and then the motherfuckers don't do this, this, and that, now you can be angry. Now you can be sad. Now you can be whatever the fuck you wanted to be in that space. Show your true colors. You showing your true self. They were just there to magnify it. As opposed to going into a space, why are you doing it now? Everything that you do, everything that you're doing based on the truest aspect of it comes from you being in gratitude of yourself. It comes from you being in gratitude of yourself, being grateful, understand the love of yourself, that balance of yourself, the peace of yourself. I am peace, therefore I provide peace. That means all of the biases, all of the perceptions that a person can use, I'm able to be emotionally present, and I'm able to deliver through assessing, acknowledging, learning, and teaching in that space. I don't go down there, I'm up here in that aspect. I'm not down there. I'm the caterpillar. I'm the caterpillar sitting on the mushroom in the forest. I'm the caterpillar sitting in the fucking forest on the mushroom. That's in my shaman state. I don't have to go down anymore. I've already done all my deep diving. Anything that was down there that I did not yet assess, these are those levels. Anything down there that I did not yet assess is up here with me anyway. Remember, the mind is all and everything is mental. So everything that I need to deal with, or everything that needs to be assessed, learned, and brought to the next space is already going to come there. It's in my mind. It's already mentally in my mind. Once I understood that aspect and I brought it to that level, I was like, oh shit, they're just imagery. Because now I can understand that everything was repeating in my life in a certain cycle, whether it was the age, and it kept showing up as the signs. So now, use this aspect. Go through a stage in your life where you were at once, think about it like this. I've met motherfuckers that are 35. I've met 35-year-old people. I've met 35-year-old children, 35-year-old children, and I've met 25-year-old adults. I've met children, childlike mindsets in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and I've met adults that are in their fucking 20s. You got to switch that shit around. You got to remove the label. Because if I'm stuck on age brings wisdom, but I got to remember, like, nigga, you've been here before. I'm going to get stuck in the emotional. I'm going to get stuck in the physical preference of age. I'm going to get stuck in the emotional aspect of age. And I'm going to use everything in my space is going to trigger me not to go to that point or not to learn from that point. But it all had to start from somewhere. Your mother, whoever told you, when you get grown, you'll be all right. When you get grown, you'll understand. When you pay some bill, all that bullshit that we were told. That's how I defined age. That's how I learned how to define age. That's how I built my that's how I built my understanding and belief about age. I connected age to the ability to pay bills. So if somebody couldn't pay bills, they were childish. They were under the identity of being childish. If they didn't know, but it wasn't about the bills, it was the discipline. It's easy to say you pay bills. It's easy to say you pay bills. It's easy to stay under the guise of I gotta pay all these bills. Yeah, try 60. Woo! Put it into the aspect. It's easy to stay within that narrative of age when you're thinking about it from the aspect of the abilities of your skill set, your survival skill set. If you are putting your age based on a survival skill set, look at what's created based in the government term. Nigga turns 65, you retire. That's the retirement age. I retired when I turned 35. I retired from the world when I turned 35. I'm 36, but I'm 27 forever. 27, 27, 9, the end of cycles. I'm the ender of all cycles. That is the full aspect. I'm the ender of all cycles. I did what I said I was going to do. I set that goal when I was little and young and didn't know what the fuck I meant when I said it. Nigga, I'm retiring from working from up. I'm retiring and doing what the fuck I want when I turn this age. Guess what I did? I did it. Because I said it when I was a little kid. I said it when I was like 8 or 9 years old. And I actually did the shit. I had to remove all of the filler and the fluff and all of the lenses to let me understand that I was already in the position when I first got there. I was already doing it. Everything that you're doing into that space is taking you where you need to be at. But when you stuck in, you're gonna be an adult when you pay all these bills. The fuck? I know adults that don't pay any bills, so are they not adults? You'll never graduate. I'm at the space now, as an example, I'm at the space now where I'm studying everything about LLCs and how to get everything through my companies, through any company that I create. From the Godico Alchemist, which is the base company, therapy, the media, all of these aspects, lectures, classes, that's what this imprint is. To the one that I'm creating next, which will be Divine Tier LLC. Divine Tier LLC, that's going to be the real estate or the property imprint. So I want to learn how to leverage, get the crib through there, tax write-off, tax write-off, tax write-off, tax write-off. Write it all up, own it all, through the aspects. Now I can sit there and be like, that's what, because when you look at it, you look at the whole business model, they stole everything. No, they put LLC beside it. They put corporation beside it. Something that you are not willing to realize that's what the fuck you are. You are a corporation. You are a corporation. You are a platform. You are a business. What do you sell? Your trauma. What do you sell? Your survival skills. You're basically, in the basic aspect of trauma, the best way that I can explain it, you are a motherfucking campsite. You're a camping store. You're where motherfuckers go get camping supplies. That's what you do. That's what you are when you're stuck in that traumatic response aspect. Whatever store you want to keep frequenting, that's what the fuck you are. You're a fucking Walmart or a Kmart or you're whatever. You're a Piggly Wiggly or a Kroger's. That's what you are. If you walking around gaslighting yourself and beefing yourself up and getting knocked off by motherfuckers, I'm tired of these narcissists and gaslighters. Guess what you are? You're a fucking gas station. That's what company you are. That's what station of where you're at. So of course you need that constant stocking of emotional investment because you're not investing into your own emotions. Make it so bad, you're the company and the employee, but you're at the employee level. You trying to find ways to not deal with your handbook that you wrote. You're not trying to deal with the ways of the shit you signed for on your application. You a disgruntled employee, mad at yourself. You a disgruntled employee, mad at the things that you put in place to keep you in line. It's not about avoiding these cycles. It's about understanding what these cycles are there for. It's like everything that you're doing is going against your own algorithm. So you're not wondering why you're not achieving what you want to achieve because you're going against your algorithm. The algorithm, your source code. You're going against it instead of learning it and then coming to this space and building with it. You said, I'm mad, I don't like these niggas. Okay. I'm tired of these bitches. I'm tired of these niggas and bitches in my inbox. Always trying to say something about me. Always trying to say some shit about me or say something about what I was wearing or hit in my inbox saying, hey, goddess and hey, king and all this shit. Why are you tired of it? Why does it bother you? What was the true reason that you made the post? What was the underlying emotional investment of you making the post? Why? What triggered you? What have you not dealt with? You upset because somebody told you that you upset because there's a whole thing talking about you feel some type of way when you hear the nigga Kevin Samuels say some shit. Don't date women with kids. They're nothing but problems. And you feel some type of way. Why does it bother you? Why does it bother you? Because I'm trying to give my kids everything the family narrative. You're still trying to uphold the family narrative. You mad because Shorty looked at you and said, "No, I don't date short niggas," or whatever it may be. I don't date these broke niggas or whatever it may be. Why does that bother you? You still trying to be accepted in some way, shape, or form into the space. Because now that when I started understanding that emotional intelligence, my emotional intelligence, my emotional insecurity, my emotional maturity was the byproduct to the streams of everything that comes into my space, and the byproducts being the money and everything in my position. I started seeing that every time somebody said something of that narrative, they were just letting me understand that it was a level of emotional intelligence that they do not understand. Instead of me looking at it like, see, that's why I don't be fucking with these bitches because they all about this, this, and this. I'm not looking for an antagonist anymore. I'm not looking to stay behaving the same way. Time to drop the identity. Apparently there's some residue in there that I didn't know about. Time to drop it. And that's what happens. Instead of me avoiding it, let me face that shit. Facing it is assessing self. Reacting to it is reacting and looking at them. Yelling at them. Using them as a catalyst for you to stay where you at. Now you upset because they won't. Why did they come into the space in the first place? Survival. Avoidance. You were avoiding something. You were surviving and avoiding and neglecting and insecure and whatever comes up. So now when the cycle comes back around, the cycle completes itself. Those 4 points in the cycle for you to be able to hop out and look at it, but you don't want to look at it. You want to go to another point. I'm going to give it a couple more days. I'm going to give it a couple more young months. I'm going to give it a year. So what do you think you're going to be creating while you're inside of those spaces? The emotional anchor to keep you locked inside of that space. Same thing your mom did. Same thing your pops did. Same thing your grandmother did. Go back to the good old sharecropping days. Go back to the good old sharecropping days. When your grandparents first got off the plantation and they needed a lot of kids the more kids that they had, the more crap they can bring in. So the more product they can bring in, the more intellectual shit they can bring in. And you've been repeating that same cycle the entire fucking time in hopes that if you do this, this, and this, it'll bring something in. That's why you don't go through the whole process. You think about things of the physical nature of physical investment through the identity or the title. You want to get married. Why? I married myself August 16, 2020. All because one day I was sitting there flipping through Facebook and it said, "Would you marry yourself?" In that moment, I was sitting in that space. I think I took some shrooms or some shit. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, would I marry myself? I never gave it any thought before to that depth. I was like, yeah. Where I'm at now, yeah. Back then, hell no. But back then my mindset was on a predisposition, on a predestination. So I felt like that would need to be a needed place marker for me to stay within that space with my skill set. So I based the relationships on my skill set. So when you look at relationships, you base the relationship on your skill set. You base your friendship based on your skill set. And your skill set based on survival is based on your traumas. So you can never go outside of the spectrum of the traumatic skill set. So you always need something in that space to keep you balanced or reacting in that space. So now look at the opportunity of your space. That's why when you look at it, they say godliness is next to cleanliness, organization, empty mind, full house. Full house, empty mind. When I look at the space when I look at my space, I can define all energy that's in the space. I can define the flow inside of the space. I know exactly what this space was put together as. I know exactly what purpose this space is for. My space is of limited opportunity inside the space and to challenge me to always stay in a sense of unlimited opportunity. As opposed to earlier spaces that you create for yourself that were based on survival. Yeah, you made it look really, really pretty, or you made it look really, really nice, but all of those were external aspects to define your worth and the beauty of yourself. That's why when you go through that ugly phase and you shedding all that shit, that's why everything has the ugly phase. That's why locks, you got to go through the phase where you ain't washing your hair. That's why when you go through a fast, you got to go through that state of being delirious and being hungry and drinking more water. Everything has to go through that. Everything has to go through that process of that putrefaction of that ugliness. But if I'm not emotionally present or whole, or I'm not learning how to become whole when I'm going into that space, when I go back out, I'm going to expect myself to stay the same. I'm going to try to keep shit with me. I'm going to try to keep certain aspects of myself and then expect them to do the same. You changed. I ain't do all this work to stay the same. I didn't do everything that I'm doing to stay the fucking same. You're not doing any of this work to stay the fucking same. Your routine has a purpose. 1 second. The routine of the one that remains within the mundane sees the opportunist as a villain. The one that remains within the mundane spectrum of thought in survival sees the opportunist as a villain. Sees the opportunist as a villain. Take it to the narrative like this. Whenever you listen to like a rapper, I'll use Royce the 5'9" as an example. Nigga made a whole album about his work with the aspects with his family. Some of the shit I remember watching interviews with him. He sat there and he was like, my mom and my dad was kind of mad at one of those, a couple of songs on that album. Friends and family were mad at a couple songs on that album because they didn't want me to tell that part of the story. But I had to tell my part of the story so I could heal. Exact words that nigga said. I'm paraphrasing the exact words what that nigga said. That's what you gonna be doing. It ain't about them feeling some type of way about the things that you doing. You doing that shit to heal. You ain't doing that shit to stay the fucking same. You trying to maintain that mundane identity, because that's what it is. And you trying to pull things through that mundane identity based on your skill set of survival, you'll never thrive. You'll always have an emotional obstacle. There will always be an emotional obstacle sitting in that space. The emotional obstacle will be whatever the fuck they about to say. I can't move out of town because my sister keep getting knocked upside the head by a boyfriend. If I move out of town and my sister calls me, I'm only going to give her one of two options. I'm not coming back there. Do you want to come up here? If she says she can't leave, then she can't leave. I can't be upset that she can't leave. I can ask why. Because of, okay, well, when you decide the offer's on the table, I'm going about my business. That's what you're doing with your shit. That's how you moving forward. That's how you avoid this is because there's a difference level between when we start to avoid family members because they not conscious, they not woke, they holding you back. As long as you deem them as the ones holding you back, the identity that you need to shed in order to apply that new knowledge to get to that next level will never be achieved. Will never be achieved. As long as you're always going to say that it's because of them that I can't do what I need to do. All you're doing is repeating the same cycles from parents and when you were the parent in past lives, and that's all you're doing. That's all you're echoing. Because guess what's echoing? You're echoing from the shadows of your identity that is connected to your past. Remember, in the present state, if I'm not in the present state, in the state of now, that means my emotions are not in this current state. I'm not assessing my emotions and understanding that my emotions create the thoughts and create my environment. If I'm not in the now, that means I'm not bringing my shadow to the now. All I'm listening to is fucking echoes. All I'm doing is echoing to the future. So of course it's going to distort to whatever it bounces off of. So you get stuck in that complex. I'm trying to save my fucking people. Okay. Where are you echoing that from? Because I can echo that from way down there. And it's going to bounce off the issues I have with my mother, the issues I have with my pops, issues I got with this person, this relationship, all of this. It's going to bounce off all of that. And then it's going to be manipulated. That energy is going to be manipulated and create those aspects in the space of what I need to save. So now in every relationship that I get in, I'm trying to save some damn body. Every friendship that I have that's on the trauma bond, I'm trying to save some fucking body. Or I'm trying to have somebody save me. So now my insecurity, whatever it may be. I need you to be my peace. I need no one to be my peace. I'm already at peace. What you're saying the simplest aspect of that, when you're saying you need someone to be your peace, you need somebody to be the peace to that identity. Because as long as they are acting as your peace, that identity can rest. Mm-hmm. It ain't as much as yeah. That identity can rest. Now you can use your survival skill set, your emotional intellect, the definition of submission. So you don't submit to yourself, you submit to them as long as they're your peace. As long as they're providing that false sense of peace. As long as they're providing the aptitudes of happiness to sequester your urges. So now you're physical inside of that space. Now the necessity is still there. So now in order for it to exist, remember that cycle goes back around. So now the moment that you hear something or see something, where does it echo back to? That nigga work all the time. All you remember is the days that your pops wasn't there because he worked all the time. He said he worked all the time. But your mom was telling you, your mom in the background talking about, your mom's sister in the background talking about, yeah, they cheating on you, girl. Don't know nigga work that goddamn much. Even if, do they have any other aptitude of how it is to run a company? You said your man was trying to open a business, right? You say he was opening a company. When you met him, did you see aptitudes of company being built? You saw a business, you saw like the plans. Ask the question based on that. Because that's going to be your lesson. It's going to be the dual lesson because you're stuck in duality. Your feeling of being left alone because you have not tapped into, you only have one skill set. You only got one skill set. Your skill set based on necessity or on the basics. When it comes into the reality, is like, what? Everything from me, I know how to cook, but I also know how to order food. You feel me? Like, you got to remove that because those are not internal standards. The internal standards are not based on the necessity of you living. They're the reflections of how you live. So you should not be in the mindset that I got to keep the house clean because that's how I get a man or that's how I get a chick to my house. It's because I got a job, this, and this. When you stuck in that motherfucking shit, that's an external standard. It's a fictitious boundary. So now, when motherfuckers do not sequester to the level of that urge, because they got to be below that, they can't be above it. They got to be below that shit in order for them to fit into your space based on your survival. So now you look at the nigga that got it out. You look at the nigga that's out there hustling. You look at shorty out there that's hustling. And then you say, okay, cool, I can bring them up to here where I'm at. Y'all in the same fucking space. Both of y'all doing the same shit based on survival. So all you're doing is bringing a conduit into your space based on survival. Because the moment that they excel or they go to a certain level, friend, family, whatever it is, you feel some type of way. Because their emotional presence has to be there. Your emotional presence is exposed. It's like looking at your best friend. It's like looking at, shit. But yeah, it's like looking at somebody that's actually doing something to the aptitude with their lives, and then your insecurities pop up. All your excuses pop up. And now you're asking the question, so how did you do it? But if they're based on the level of survival where you're at, they're never going to tell you. You got to step outside of your comfort zone. You got to step outside of your comfort zone. You got to come to the authentic credibility is your ability to come to the table. And when you asking questions, the questions can be built upon. So if you go into a space, use an example. I make all of my music for my podcast. But when it comes to, I remember when I first started doing the music for my podcast, that's when I met my brother Cole. We don't even talk about music half the time. But listening to him when he does his work, and he looks up, that's our charge. I don't have to be there present. I don't have to be present in that space or try to make it like, oh, we got to. That's already the charge into that space. The inspiration is naturally within that space. It's not based on an attachment. It's based on a true connection. When it's time for that level to come into that, when it's time for that level to, when it's time for that to come up, it'll come up into that space, into that physical form. Ain't got to worry about it. Ain't got to think about it. Everybody in your space, what is their purpose? This is when I was break down, like, what is their purpose in your space? Was it based on survival? Then assess, now you getting irritated because now you ain't trying to survive no more. You're trying to thrive. You're trying to grow. But you are not applying because you're not letting that identity fall away. When that identity doesn't fall away, every bit of information that you get, you're going to try to use it into that space. Every conversation that you have, you that's like, think about it like it's like when motherfuckers go get self-help books and try to go help their relationship. It's like you watch Breakfast Club and you watch the episode with Nipsey Hussle, he was talking about the Way of the Superior Man book. And your homegirl didn't watch that. You didn't watch that watched it, and you were like, I'm gonna go get that book for my man. And then you sitting there reading the book, and then you trying to go spoon feed him this shit through your survival tactics, saying, well, if you do this, this, and this, they'll say we'll have a better relationship. Who the fuck said that? Because that ain't what the fuck they said. You trying to read that book for your own gain instead of reading that book to understand your own gains. That book gonna teach you what the fuck you need to lose. What the shit about yourself. But if you're only looking at it based on to maintain the space that you in, you're only gonna get 23% of the information out of the book anyway. Same thing when you want to go read a book. I read a whole book on astral projection. I'm gonna slide in the shorty house. Okay. Astral projection is the realms of the mind. That's all the astral world is. It's the realms of your own mind. Just like psychedelics. They take you to the realms of your mind. Take you into the realms of yourself. You can't go anywhere other than the realms of your mind. You got to become present in your life. It's time to become present. As long as you're not present in the now, you're always going to see opportunities as obstacles. You're always going to look at the opportunity as an obstacle. You're always going to look for a reason not to do it. You're always going to look for a reason not to invest into that emotional aspect, invest the emotions into that. But you're always looking for a reason you're always going to be looking for reasons for emotional reaction. And that's what you have the descriptions outside of your world right now. You can emotionally invest in don't look at the news. Okay. You'll write a whole thesis of not watching the news. The news lies. Okay. Now what? You don't watch the news. Cool. You don't read the paper. Cool. You stay off social media. Cool. Now what? What are you doing? Now that you're sitting in that dark ass space with yourself, what you got left? Everything that's in that void with you. That's why the news is there, so you can avoid it. That's why that's why your social media is there. so you can avoid it. That's your obstacle to stop you from tapping into yourself. But when you see it as an opportunity, as an example, you see it as an opportunity, and you understand that you're a company, you're a business, you're a corporation, you are a brand, you are a platform. That's when what will come across your screen, you'll hear something about digital real estate. This is an example. You'll see something about digital real estate. What the hell is digital real estate? Many levels to digital real estate. The most simplest explanation of digital real estate is your social media platforms. YouTube, digital real estate. Snapchat, digital real estate. Digital property. Your digital property. Your Facebook, digital property. Snapchat, TikTok, digital property. How do you invest into your digital property? Do you invest into it as much as you invest into you? That's what's going to be shown on that's what you see on pages anyway. You can see how much a motherfucker is invested into themselves. You can see the emotional rifting post to suck in some emotion, get some emotional feeds. And you can see when a motherfucker's actually dropping some shit down to teach your ass some shit. That same obstacle, same opportunity based into where you're at with yourself. I have YouTube, I have Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I'm here or there with I'm here or there with Snapchat, and I'm here or there with Twitter. But my three main digital real estates are Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. I haven't been kicked off none of these shits yet. Because I'm not dropping emotional ass shit. My skill set is not in the mindset of I'm doing this to do something and they're gonna shut me down in that space. Mm-hmm. This is how I interact. In that now think about the aspects of your interaction, what you bring into your space. So now, for the example, whether you've been rocking with me since the beginning when I started doing this shit in 2019, when I started doing the classes and lectures, or you just came in, you notice that we have a different topic. It's a business. This is my stream to the business aspect to connect. This is based on connection. Facebook, same aspect. Instagram, same aspect. It's not removing the personal. It's not removing the personal based on avoidance. Because put it like this, and I said this before when I talked about Facebook. The original reason I created my Facebook page was to give honor to my pops when he died. My father when he transitioned. That was the original reason why I created my page. My original name on my Facebook page was Carlos King in honor of my pops. That's what it was for. Everything that came into that stream of that page was based on building those relationships based in that. As I shifted and I grew within myself, naturally my platform changed. Beforehand, while I was going through the earlier levels of my healing work, and you can look, if you go look on my I created an entire page for my consciousness. I put my consciousness in a box, basically. Put my whole consciousness inside of a box. And I created an entire page for that. After a while, I noticed that I couldn't maintain that identity because it was an identity. So the things that I posted on that page, it kind of slowed the fuck down because it wasn't based on avoiding it, it's that it evolved. That page, my first page that I created on Facebook, that was like my blog page, that became the podcast. That page is no longer, I still can put stuff on that page, but now I have the podcast. Now I got the podcast going. So now I got a page for the podcast that connects to the podcast. I evolved into that sense. that's stepping into the more authentic aspects of myself. In that space for the podcast, had one or two choices to go into. I didn't know how to make music. I didn't know how to do editing. I didn't know how to do none of that shit. But I sat into that space and my talents were shown to me in that space. Nope. And my purpose has no limitations. Your purpose, your potential has no excuses. Moving with that same train of thought as I'm learning how to honor my thoughts. No, nigga, I want some sick beats behind my shit, behind my words. I want to do this. I could go one or two ways. I could get stuck in, nigga, I gotta have money to do this. Or I'll be like, all right, nigga, let me sit down and learn how to put this shit together. I don't need it to be this. It's only based on my value into the space or what I put it into. That's what I'm building into. So then the podcast was formed. The same time I formed the podcast, I formed the YouTube channel. But before I actually started going onto the YouTube channel, I was like, all right, cool, I gotta go live on Facebook. I gotta go live on Instagram. So now I'm changing the perception of how I was on that page. So now when you look at my page, if you go back to my page from like 6-7 years ago and you take, I don't know why motherfuckers, I've seen people do it, and scroll all the way down to the bottom part of my fucking page, you'll see the evolution. You'll see the shifts. You'll see the actual growth into where I do now. If you go from the first uploaded post that's on my YouTube channel and go to the post right now, you'll see the emotional aptitudes of growth. So it's like, I have the receipts to my growth in my work. That's not for anybody else. That's primarily for me. Since it's primarily for me from a place of truth of myself in teaching and learning and counseling and providing these services, they can see it. That's your authentic self. As you grow into your authentic self, you got to shed those identities. I could have maintained the same identity from the first post I ever posted, but then I wouldn't see none of y'all. Y'all, we would not be in an interaction of phase. Not in this capacity, not within this space. But that's how you're changing yourself. This is how you're growing. You got to, all those perspectives that you use to form antagonists or to keep you in a certain state of mind, those are the things that you're going to be assessing as you're going forward. That's your table of contents. You have the entire book sitting in front of you. Go look in the mirror with it. And if you need that help, that's what I say. That's what I'm here for. Becoming the best version of self. Becoming the best version of yourself is in the authentic of you being present in the now. When you're going through these phases and these cycles, the places where you were very physical at, or you were physically there, and you now get emotional, it's teaching you to be an emotional presence. It's showing you the presence of the emotions that you used to create the space. You know you did that shit based on fear. You knew you did that shit based on insecurity and doubt. You know how you built that space. You know how you did it. You just got to accept it, and so we can move forward. I just want you to be the fucking best. Always. I don't want you to be better. I don't want you to feel good. That's a secondary action. I care less if you feel good. Secondary action. That's not how you're going to get on this journey. That's not how you're going to get on this journey. This journey is not based on you feeling good or trying to stay in that state of you being, I'm swiftly going to get to the best version of myself in the next 2 years. No. Because you're going to get to the point where time doesn't exist. You're going to get to the point when the time doesn't exist. One of the biggest things that I had to get through, little fun fact, one of the things I had to get through was I always had the potential to be the youngest when I did things. Every one of my jobs, every job that I ever held, everything that I ever did, I was always usually the youngest to do it. They're like, damn, you only this age and you this, and you this age and you this, and damn, you doing this at this age and this, and this. And it was because unconsciously, I was navigating by watching everybody else. My foresight, my ability to see shit was already online. I just didn't know I didn't know the level of my emotional intelligence. It guided how I used my intuition, my clairvoyance, my clairambience, my abilities. It hindered my abilities, but I could see what could hinder my abilities to take me to certain spaces. So now when I'm in the space that I'm in now, it's like, nigga, you still young as fuck. Even though you old as hell, you've been here for millenniums, you've been here for a while. This your last cycle. What are you gonna do with it? That's how I changed my ability. And that brought me into this new space. This path is not based on you earning any success. Your path is not going to be based on you looking at the success that you've earned. Yes, you made a life for yourself and you made an entire life for yourself and your life may be good, but you're missing whether your life is good, going great, or is going horrible. The thing that keep you connected or attached to the motherfuckers around you is based on you still missing something. Your success in the physical aspect, my success in the physical aspect, I still always felt like I was missing some shit. Still felt like I was missing some shit. No matter how successful I became, no matter how successful I was becoming, I always felt like I was missing some shit. No matter how bad things got, then I would look at the shit that I had. So I was just stuck in that cycle. Shit going bad, my life going horrible, shit, relationship going horrible, separated and arguing with my parents and people and shit. And all I could do is sit in my room, sit in the same space and look and be like, at least I got a TV, at least I got this, at least I got my car, at least I got this shit. But then when I was going through, that was in the good cycles, I would look at the external. In the bad cycles, same shit. Like, damn, I'm about to lose my car and damn, I'm about to lose this. I'm not understanding the pattern. It was based on the emotional aspect. The reason that I wanted to go get the car, all this success, was to prove things, to hide my acceptance wounds, hide my rejection, hide these wounds of myself. So now the path that I've is not about those aspects. Those are byproducts. The thing that stops a lot of us on our path is the byproduct. You looking at the byproduct like, man, if I lose this, then what am I going to do? What am I going to be? If I ain't got no car, I can't get to work. If I ain't got this, I can't get to work. If I can't do this, then I don't have this. Then everybody going to look at me a certain type of way. It's just going to keep bringing up the triggers. That Eight of Pentacles. The things that you've earned up to this point, the things that you losing on both sides of that coin is that aspect of what you're grounded in based on the prudence. You'll stop doing some shit. You'll do some shit only based on what it's going to give you, based on the result. Your path is not based on the results. It's based on what you learn on the path. What we just been doing is breaking down the aspects that is on that path. There is no result, so there is no timeline. That result you're looking for, that relationship you're trying to get to and all that, that's going to leave you in a loop of a timeline. It's going to have you rushing. It's going to have you trying to slow down, rushing, upset with you. It's going to have you doing a whole bunch of shit that you, some extra shit. That's why let's talk about haste. This is not a time for you to be keep trying to move in haste or trying to find the quickest route. This is about you accepting the route that you at right now. It's why. This path is about you like, okay, I'm not trying to. Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness. But you're looking at your space now. It's not about moving with that, hey, I got to get here to do this. And why? Sit your ass down, reflect. Sit your ass down and do the work. Sit your ass down and do what needs to be done. Which reminds me of a story about manifestation. And I tell people about manifestation all the time, setting your intentions and all that good shit. If I don't have a space for the energy to go to, where do you think the energy goes to? Sit down with yourself. If I don't have a space for the energy to go to, where do you think the energy goes? If I set an intention to, for example, if I set an intention to grow, but I don't have any intentions of what I need to learn into the growing aspect, where do you think the energy goes? That energy flows into everything that is meant to hold you. No problem, no problem. That's going to take you into every space that's holding you back. So now you look at relationships, friendships, all of these shit start breaking apart. You want to hastily move because you think it's an obstacle. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to find your voice if you haven't been speaking. It's an opportunity for you to shut the fuck up and listen if you haven't been listening. It's always an opportunity. Which leads into the aspects of that suspense. Remember, like, as I've told, like, if you had services with me, or even like, I'm just, the cards are secondary to what I'm already saying. You stuck in that space of suspension. Why can't I move forward? You're so used to hastily moving and applying some shit and then keep going forward. This ain't that. This ain't that. Just gonna let you know that now. This is a space of burning. This is a space of purity, purifying yourself in the lake waters of Lake Minnetonka. As I'm always gonna close it out with is, you're always in the right position. You've always been in the right position. You've always been in the right space. What are you doing now to move forward? You keep telling yourself that you want to be the best version of yourself. You want to be the best, but in order to become the best, you got to allow that identity to be shed away. You got to become present. There is no more. If you notice, I've talked about this before. If you notice, the shadows have become the most dense because we went from that density level of 7 to that density level of 12. So what you gonna fucking do? I would love to say, no, I wouldn't. It would be easy for me to say, I'll always be here, but I won't. That's the point to get past your fear. If you read the Gospel of Thomas in the Nag Hammadi scriptures, there's a scripture where Jesus is sitting on top of the mountain and all the niggas is just walking into the whatever, into this scape. And he whispers back to Jacob and says, even this shit don't exist. That means everything that's in your space right now, it only exists based on you. It only exists based on your thought process. When you really start getting to the roots of these issues, your underlying traumas and the events in your life, especially you working with me, you'll notice things start to change. You'll notice those biases starting to fall away. I ain't doing shit but showing you. I ain't doing you but giving you. I'm empty as hell when I leave. I'm empty as fuck. I'm not trying to be full. I'm not trying to, because I'm already in my purpose. See, that false sense in the light, it'll have your ass out here. Just a little, yeah. Be like, oh my God. That's, to me, right? Like, I'm always empty. That's why I always can keep cycling. I'm always empty. When you go to bed, are you empty or are you full? Think about how you eat. Think about everything that you do. It's all based in that cycle. You keep trying to fill yourself up with something so you can stay put. It's time to empty yourself. It's time to get empty. That next time, put it like this. The next time you have a feeling of emptiness, despair, insecurity, jealousy, whatever feeling comes up, sit with it. Sit with it for a little bit. Sit with it. Sit with it. It's your inner child trying to give you, hey, come pay attention with me. Sit with it. Sit with it a little bit. Sit with it. Sit with it. What do you find? What came to the surface? And then after you do that, come holler at Papa Lucifer. Everything from the services, from the readings or the mini consultations to the big boy consultation, the shadow work consultation, seeing what level of therapy we got to tap you into. It's all available. Hit me in the inbox. Hit me at the number. Everything's in the description. Hit me up. If you've already done it, we about to keep going further. We about to keep getting deeper into yourself. Because I just desire you to be the fucking best. I desire you to be the fucking best. I'm coming from that space with myself of being in that space. You got to be ready. You got to be ready. Nobody can make you do what you're not ready for. That's one thing that's one thing you're going to learn about becoming present in the now. Is nobody can make you do what you're not ready for. So if you're triggered to do something, it's because you were ready for it. Think about it like that with your perspective. If you reacting to some shit, it's because you were ready for it. That's the only time that you react to some shit, because you were ready for it. Whether you want to accept it or not, that's the lesson that you're about to learn. But I want you to be the fucking best. I appreciate y'all for stopping through. Appreciate y'all for stomping through. This is as much therapy as it is for me, as for y'all, as we learn and we get deeper into ourselves. Yeah. I love you. You love us. Ashe.